Chapter 6, Mexico. It wasn't until noon when Marina strolled out of her room and down the carpeted stairs. She proceeded to walk outside the back sliding doors looking for her father, so she could tell him of the plan to aid the business. She noticed he was standing under the patio on the phone, while her mother's son bathed beside the pool. Michael, her 13-year-old brother, ran past her and cannonballed into the pool. The water splashed on the mother, causing her to curse and fuss the boy in Spanish. Marina leaned against the patio furniture, waiting for her father to finish his phone call. She knew better than to interrupt his phone calls. As she waited, the previous night's events swam through her head. Marina also ran the words she would say to her father and tried to predict exactly what he would say in response. Joaquin hung up his phone with force and slammed it onto the table. A few curse words flowed from his mouth as he yanked the chair from underneath the table. Marina hid her smiling, knowing full well where she acquired her temper from. More heat from the federals, and the governor has sent out special forces to patrol the streets because of the little incident last night. He let out a heavy sigh before picking up his glass and taking a swig. I might have a solution. Marian joined her father at the table. What if we use the hair and nail salons in the area, also that corner store? Many people track in and out all day long paying cash. This would be the perfect cover for our operations in that town. Then you only have to pay the shop owners and not the expensive government agencies. Marina could see the wheels of thought rotating in her father's mind. I will bring this up in the meeting this afternoon, a meeting I want you to attend. It would be good for you to learn more of the business side of things. Marina's lips twisted into a smile, pleased by his response. Later that day, the meeting was held around 4 in the afternoon at the Alvarez's home. The higher-ups from the Alvarez's cartel, along with a few members of the Ukraine rebel group, were all sitting around the table. The Ukrainians were new to the partnership and would be dealing in guns mostly. The cartel wanted to branch outside of the Americans, to bring the business worldwide, and this rebel group would allow just that. Guns would be traded along with cash, drugs, and other criminal activities to supply most of Russia, and eventually worldwide. The only way the cartel would be able to pull this off would be the aid from groups around the world, including a special guest that would be arriving for this meeting. Thank you for coming out to my home on such short notice. I have a couple of things I wanted to share with you and to keep you up to date. Mr. Alvarez stood behind his leather chair as he addressed the people seated around the table. As you all know, I have been meaning to push our supply and business worldwide, and doing so I would need your help, as well as help from other key individuals. First, my daughter Marina will oversee this small group, composed of each family's selected member. One from your group, Vladimir. We are on board. I will let my children and comrades know. I am sure one of them or one of my guys wouldn't mind joining the little gang of hitmen. Vladimir, the boss of the Ukraine rebel group, spoke up. One from the Irish IRA, and hopefully from the Kenya African Territory. The others Marina you will select, except for one spot needs to go to our newest member, Kevin O'Neill. Kevin. Mr. Alvarez called the man in to join the meeting. Kevin works for the CIA, and before you get your panties in a bunch, please hear him out. Mr. Alvarez took a seat, and the attention was now focused on Kevin. Marina, who sat beside her father, narrowed her eyes at the man. She couldn't believe a CIA agent was allowed in their home. Thank you, Mr. Alvarez, for allowing me to attend this meeting as well as the opportunity to become a liaison between the cartel and the CIA. With a green light from Washington, D.C., I have put together a packet for you all to look over. It contains information and our goals we hope to achieve. The US government has made deals with Mr. Alvarez, and hopefully you all will join him. This joining would be allowing you to avoid prosecution for a vast crime spree that includes mass murder, corruption, bribery, drug trafficking, extortion, and more. In exchange, cartel leaders simply must help US officials eliminate their competitors, certainly a win-win scenario for crime bosses who prefer to operate without competition or fear of prosecution. The Alvarez cartel will be the only cartel in Mexico and South America, as well as your business in other parts of the country. One business in each part of the world. All connected as one unit. Kevin explained. The meeting lasted a couple hours and had a rather happy ending. Champagne was passed around, and the other bosses cheered and had high hopes for this new plan. Vladimir called it a UN for the criminals, but Marina was none too happy. Everything about this plan seemed off, and she didn't trust the dark-haired male Kevin. Chapter 7, New Iberia, Louisiana. 6 months later. Ma'am. Please don't do that. JJ tried to remain polite as he gave the woman he had just pulled over a stern look. I will do it. I will set myself on fire. The woman yelled, shaking the gas can. JJ grit his teeth trying to keep his cool and his sarcastic mouth shut. He turned to glance at his unit with the barking canine inside. I will do it. I swear. The woman continues to scream at JJ. Why do you want to set yourself on fire? He asked. The woman continued to scream obscenities as she reached for the gas can's lid. JJ knew the whole thing was for attention, and something was seriously wrong with her, but she brought out a gas can. As she looked down to untwist the can's lid, JJ warned her one last time. Of course, she ignored him and went to pour gas on herself. JJ took off and tackled the woman to the ground. The can and gas went flying in the air as JJ brought the woman to the ground. He struggled to get her on her stomach as the woman fought back. Sasquatch, the canine partner, was going nuts in the back of the unit, causing it to shake a bit. JJ finally got her in a wrist lock and was able to get his other hand free to reach for the handcuffs. The woman screamed in pain, along with foul words towards JJ. Well, you should have listened. JJ huffed as he finally slapped the cuffs on her and radioed in for backup. After the other unit pulled out with the screaming woman, JJ's beeper went off. It was his mother wanting him to call him back. JJ made his way to the jail so he could use the phone as well as change his uniform shirt. The gas spilled on him a bit and he couldn't stand the smell, plus it was a hazard. JJ took his canine Sasquatch down to feed and water him, while he took a quick break to call his mom. It was a usual conversation. How is your night? How is your brother? Did you pray and give God some time and conversation? The only difference on tonight's phone call would be when JJ mentioned that he would be moving out the house. Becky and he decided to get a place together and take the relationship to the next level. The two had been dating since the night they met. He braced for the worst and knew his mom would have a fit. JJ, you know I love you and I love Becky dearly, but you cannot move in together. You are not married, and you know better. Mary continued lecturing him over the phone. Sean noticed his brother was in the office and came up behind him. The blonde put his ear next to phone to listen in. JJ noticed Sean eavesdropping and kicked him away. JJ covered the phone with one hand and glared at his brother. Don't you have prisoners to watch? JJ hissed loud, but his mother's voice was louder. Sean had been working at the jail for about 6 months. All the officers started off working there until they could attend the academy, But the only reason Sean was there so long was due to him failing the first month of the academy. While Sean waited to go back to the academy, his time would be spent in the jail or work release division. Also, the department desperately needed patrol officers, which was the reason they were going to give Sean Simoneaux another chance. "Yes, Mom. Love you, I have to go." JJ practically hung up on her as she was in the middle of a sentence. "So how is your night really going? Why do you smell like gasoline?" Sean asked with a huge grin on his face. "Well, for starters, I had the guy at the cafe, so drunk he was peeing in the corner. After a fight, I finally got him cuffed. Then there was this group of kids skating up and down the middle of the road. Then this one chick starts crying because I pulled her over for speeding." He paused a moment. Sean went to speak, but JJ started up again. "Then I got in a fight with this other crackhead, sent him here. Then this drunk dude runs into a parked car. Man, it must be a full night or something because I have been non-stop." He removed his duty belt and started to unbutton his shirt. "Man, I can't wait to get on the road. The jail is so boring." Sean pouted as he looked at his boots. "Switch places for the rest of the night and you can go tackle gas welding crazy ladies." JJ joked. "That is why I smell like gas." A crazy lady was trying to douse herself with it. He removed his shirt and dug around for a spare. "Sean, do you have one in your locker?" JJ asked his brother. "Probably, but it will cost you." Sean tried to keep from laughing. "Really? Just give me the dang shirt." JJ tossed the gas-stained shirt at his brother's face playfully. As JJ waited, he decided to give his girlfriend a call. Since it was a busy night, he knew he most likely wouldn't get a chance to check in with her again. The off-hour schedules the officers worked, along with the high stress, was hard on any relationship. Police officers did have the highest rate in divorce and relationship problems due to this very reason, but Becky and JJ strived to make things work. It was still a new relationship, and they wanted to test it by taking the next step by living together. JJ never loved a girl like how he loved Becky. She was sweet and caring, but was not afraid to speak her mind or put JJ in his place. Becky also got along famously with JJ's mother. His mother helped push Becky to go to college and strive for her dreams to become an astronomer. The young woman stayed around the Simoneaux home more than her own. Her family didn't care for JJ that much because of how silly he and his brother were at times. Her sister thought Becky was too good for JJ and that she should have been dating a lawyer or doctor, but Becky loved her simple little deputy and his crazy family. Chapter 8 Mexico. Night had just fallen on Mexico City, and the only lights in the sky were of the mechanical sorts. Like any other city, it never slept. A dirty homeless man slowly made his way from the alleyway into the back of the small store. "Evening, Nathaniel. Got you a plate of tamales the missus made." The Mexican store owner called out to the male. The owner would often allow Nathaniel stay there for the night, in exchange for him to watch over the store. He walked in the back door and slowly made his way to this small area where he had made a pallet on the floor. Nathaniel would usually wander the streets homeless, stealing to keep feed. He would often stay in the back business for shelter, the only safe place he really knew. He scavenged and fought to stay alive every day. The struggle was unyielding, but he kept a strong mind and spirit. Nate was a survivor, and a lot of his training guaranteed that. The copper-colored man removed his tattered black jacket, folded it, and placed it in the corner. His hand circled the Navy SEAL's badge that hung loosely on the cotton. It was a memory and reminder of lost opportunities and wrongdoings. The ex-Navy SEAL that was taught to be clean-shaven and a tip-top shape was not up to par. Nathaniel grew used to the gruff and poor appearance, for he no longer cared what he looked like. The man was barely surviving, let alone had the will to keep himself in good appearance. He was sporting almost a full beard and tattered clothes. His boots, that were once polished and scuff-free, now was almost falling off him. Nathaniel's black hair almost touched his shoulders, but he kept it back tied in a string out of his face and eyes. All that time serving his country, and now he was in another trying to survive, but his fate of being homeless and useless was about to change. His darkest hour was to come, and it would change him for the worst. Nathaniel went to take off his dilapidated boots when he was interrupted mid-bend. A loud crash and screaming came from the front of the store. The soldier stood up attentively straight before making his way towards the commotion. As he paused by the doorway, he noticed a glint as the fluorescence light reflected off a silvery gun. The gun was held by a masked man and was pointed straight at the store owner. The masked man cursed in Spanish at the owner, causing him to startle and drop his broom. Nathaniel wasn't fluent in the language, but the time spent there he did pick up how to understand and speak a bit of it. He slowly made his way into the store, not taking his eyes off the criminal. Out the corner of his eyes, Nate could see the owner terrified and crying. The store was the owner's life. He put his heart and soul into it to provide for his family. Such an honest and hardworking man didn't deserve this. He was always kind and generous toward Nathaniel, and now it was Nate's time to return to the favor. He wanted Nate there for security, and that is what this Solider is going to be. Nathaniel walked behind the gunman silently before clearing his throat. "Something I can help you with?" Nathaniel spoke in a calm and deep voice. The gunman turned around and pointed the gun at Nate. The crook was a bit shaky and paranoid as he kept looking at Nathaniel and the owner. "Go away or I will shoot you too. Give me the money, old man," he yelled at the owner as he now pointed the gun toward him. Hey, keep the gun on me," Nathaniel commanded. Nate was used to being shot at and having guns in his face. He was also a good study of people's action and could tell this man was too chicken to pull the trigger. Nathaniel commanded the man again in Spanish to keep the gun on himself. The owner still had his hands up and his eyes closed, chanting a prayer. Nathaniel tilted his head and sized the man a bit. "Will you shut up and give me the cash?" the robber yelled, looking back at the owner. Nathaniel saw his opportunity and smacked the gun out the man's hand. Nate then reached around and grabbed the back of the thief's neck, while his foot hit the back of the man's knee in one fluid motion. The robber dropped the gun and it skidded across the floor. They both went to the floor, and Nathaniel pulled back and used his fist to punch the man in the face with all his might. The solid punch broke the man's jaw and knocked him out cold. The gun slid across the floor and was stopped by women's leather boot. Nathaniel looked up slowly when he heard clapping. Marina stood there holding the gun under her foot as she clapped slowly. "Great performance," she spoke softly. A touch of a Spanish accent in her English, Nathaniel could tell she was most likely fluent in both. He slowly stood up straight and kept his eyes on her. The owner went to grab the phone, but Marina raised her finger. "No sir, we will handle him. Anyone who threatens my employees, they will get the full force of my fury." Her shoulder-length curly hair bounced as she moved her head, shaking it. She wore a black long tank top and tight jeans. Her boots came up to her knees over the dark jeans that hugged her hips. Marina finally bent down and picked up the gun and sat it down on the counter. My name is Marina Alvarez, she spoke calmly and almost in a low tone. The store owner heard the name and his eyes went wide. Señorita Alvarez, I am so sorry for all of this. The owner was still a bit shaken up and now was even trembling, having found out who the woman was. The store was one of the many stores the cartel used to launder money through. Nate, this is Miss Alvarez. The owner came around the corner holding a bag. He went to hand it to Marina, but she refused to take it. Nate looked over at the owner and then back to Mariana. I have a job proposal for you, and I bet you will be fit right in. Marina brought the homeless man, who showed remarkable skill, to one of the family's safe houses. She instructed Nathaniel to bathe and clean up before discussing the job. Marina sat in the house's small living room thumbing through a newspaper as she waited for Nathaniel to clean up. She didn't bring in people off the streets often, but the obvious training the man had was too much of a good thing to pass up. If he agreed, and after his background check to make sure he told the truth, Marina would place him in her little group. The group named Los Demonios, or the Seven Devils in English. So far only her and Kevin occupies the group, so Marina needed 5 more to join. 5 top-notch killers who had the same drive, reputation, and skill as her. The best of the best. Nathaniel walked out of the steaming bathroom using a towel to dry his poorly cut hair. The clothes he wore were a bit too big for him, as well as too short, and hung off his thin 6'5" frame. The long years of being on the streets caused his fit build to dwindle to a malnutrition frame. We will get you a proper haircut and better clothes soon, but for now, please sit. Marina motioned for him to sit on the couch in front of her. Nathaniel looked to the guarded door and then to the other guard who stood by the window. His brown eyes then landed on Marina, studying her a bit. The two exchanged about a minute worth of silence before Nathaniel tossed the towel in the bathroom and sat down. My name is Marina Alvarez, daughter to Joaquin Alvarez. The reason I have brought you here and out of that dump of a store is I believe you have potential. She paused to see if he had anything to say before continuing. I am putting together a little group that would be perfect for a man of your skill. It will be dangerous, but I can tell you are not one to be scared easily. Also, it will pay handsomely. No more homeless wandering or sleeping on the ground. Another moment of silence before Nathaniel finally opened his mouth. What is the catch? He asked bluntly. Marian sat back in the chair and smiled. This man was not like the others she dealt with. Most would have been too afraid to speak up, let alone speak the way he did to her. It was almost in a demanding tone. This man, Nathaniel, was a few years older than her. The way he carried himself and the hard way he looked, Marina could tell he had seen and done some awful things. This deepened her belief in him being excellent for the group. The only catch is to be completely loyal to me and the family. Do as you are told, and you will be paid. Betray us, and you will wish you never stepped foot in Mexico. It was another long pause in silence. Nathaniel kept his gaze on Marina, but she could tell he was thinking it over. First, before you make any decision, please tell me about yourself and how you ended up on the streets. Marina crosses her leg and sat her hands in her lap waiting for the story. Nathaniel let out to be what seemed like a mix between an aggregated yet painful sigh. He glanced to the men on either side of him before facing Marina again. I was in the Navy for 3 years and in the SEALs for another 4. Nate proceeds tell Marina about his story. The story included the mission. Nate was blamed for getting everyone killed and then discharged from the military. The Navy SEALs was no easy place, nor job to have. You had to be the best of the best. to obey orders and ask no questions. It was difficult for Nate to do this without having some to say about certain things, but when it came to a job, he did get it done. For years the SEALs did everything they told him to do, no questions asked. Holding his tongue and being a good soldier, but that changed. Nathaniel's only friend and superior was injured, causing the downward spiral of Nate's life. The mission was to block off and shut down a whole city. The reason? To flush out and destroy a major terror cell in the area. To do this, the SEALs need to release an E-bomb. This bomb would destroy critical electric infrastructure. It would short everything from computers to traffic lights to even pacemakers. This terror cell and its leader were held up in a Middle Eastern town outside of Dubai. The mission was simple enough: go in to set off the bomb, collect the leader of this cell and take out the other terrorist. A small squad of 10 SEALs were sent, including Nathaniel and his friend Jamal. Jamal being the sergeant and the one trained in setting up this new tech bomb. The small group was huddled inside the chopper. Nate looked out over the horizon, preparing himself for the mission at hand, while the others talked amongst themselves, going over the landscape along with streets and what direction to take. Jamal was older than Nate and had been in more missions than he could remember. He somehow understood Nate and how he wanted to be a loner, but wouldn't allow him. It wasn't good for anyone to be that cut off from everything. Jamal had darker skin than Nathaniel, with a little bit more of a husky build. His face was worn with the many missions he had been on, and it gave him such a hard and mean look. Jamal's look was hard, but deep down he was very caring, especially to his fellow soldiers. The older male shuffled over and sat beside Nate. Jamal wiped the bit of sweat that collected on his dark skin under his do-rag. "What's up, Nate? Talk to me," he said in his deep raspy voice. Nate looked over at Jamal and shook his head. "Nothing, just want this to be over with. Something about this mission just doesn't sit right with me." Nate gripped his gun, using it to prop himself up with. Jamal laughed a little and patted Nate's shoulder. "You are always a downer, you know that. It is an easy in and out mission." Jamal gave Nate a reassuring smile before standing up a little. Jamal glanced outside, waiting for the chopper to land. The sergeant then turned to his men. "All right guys, let's do this. You know what you have to do, so let's do it." Jamal hopped out the chopper and the others followed. Nate was last out the chopper, fixing his strap. The young SEAL then watched as the chopper disappeared into the darkness before walking over to the group of guys. "All right, we need to place the bomb here in this center building and get at least a 5-mile radius away when it goes off. The hotel is new and should be empty. After we exit, we need to get to this cafe to wait for the bomb to dissipate. Then it should be safe to go into this apartment building." Jamal pointed out on a map. "This is where the leader is said to be held. The subject is to be taken alive, everyone else can be taken out." Jamal explained while looking at every man in the eyes to make sure they understood. The soldiers made their way towards the large building in the cover of darkness. The streets were silent and empty, almost like a ghost town. The rest of the city were asleep while the team silently hustled up the side street. The SEAL team entered through a back door and split apart. One half made their way up the stairs to clear one side the building, the other team walked into the main lobby. 3 more men then split off and left Jamal and Nate to carry the bomb into the elevator. Once inside, Jamal pressed the 3rd floor button and waited patiently, while Nate looked straight at the silver doors, a bit uneasy. Nathaniel's leg moved back and forth a bit, as his stomach did somersaults. He wasn't sure why he was so nervous or so uneasy. It wasn't like this was his first mission, nor the most dangerous. So far so good. Jamal looked over at Nate and gripped the duffel bag that carried the bomb. You alright, man? Jamal's eye went from Nate's leg to his face, which was filled with worry. Nathaniel nodded a bit and kept quiet. He didn't want to say anything and jinx the mission. The doors soon opened and the two exited the elevator. The two Navy SEALs walked into the middle of the third floor and walked past a couple rooms. Nate kicked the paint bucket and other tools aside as Jamal then dropped the bag. Jamal unzipped it while Nate kept watch, eyeing the incomplete room of the hotel. His eyes scanned each door and then the window at the far side of the hall. Jamal took out the rather small device and began to assemble it a bit. The sergeant then began to program it and set the time on the bomb. The silence was shattered as gunfire was heard in the distance. Jamal's head perked up and he looked over at Nate. Nathaniel lifted his rifle and waited for anything. Beta, come in. Jamal commanded on his walkie. He waited a moment and spoke again. Team Beta, come in. He spoke a little louder. Team Beta, sir, we are under attack and ambush, get the bomb out. But the guy was cut off before he could finish. Jamal began to try and disassemble the bomb to put it back into the duffel bag as quick as he could. He got it halfway into the bag before bullets flew past and hit the side the device. A part of the device went off and flashed in Jamal's face. Nate turned to his screaming friend. Sergeant. Nate ran toward Jamal, checking on him a bit. More bullets flew past them, and all Nathaniel could do was fire back with one hand, while grabbing a hold of the back of Jamal's vest with his other. Nate pulled a screaming Jamal with all his strength down the hall and back towards the elevator. Nate fired back at the terrorist as he dragged his friend into the elevator. Jamal was still revving in pain and screaming out loud. Nate waited till the doors closed and then kneeled to check on him. What happened? Nate asked, looking at his friend's bloody face. Jamal moved his hands. A bullet hit the bomb. I can't see. He grunted in pain. Nathaniel bent down and looked at his eyes again. Jamal could barely open them as he stared blankly ahead. Nate cursed and took a rag out his pocket to wipe some of the blood off Jamal's face. Suddenly the elevator's lights flickered and then went off. The elevator jolted. I think the bullet sent off some of the bomb. The blind Jamal grabbed Nate's forearm. The elevator jolted again, and then the cables could be heard grinding before falling. OSH, Nate cursed as the elevator fell 2 stories and slammed at the bottom of the shaft. The two SEALs were breathing heavy in the darkness. Are you okay? Nate asked as he pulled out his flashlight, looking all over and then down at Jamal. Jamal sat up and leaned against the wall and nodded a bit. Nate tried to get someone on the radio, but the E-bomb wiped out all electronics. Nathaniel cursed again while pushing debris out the way. The SEAL tried to find a way out by pulling the doors open, only to be met with a brick wall. Nate then tried to open the top of the elevator, but pieces of the roof held it shut. Nathaniel finally gave up and stood by his friend. I can only pray some of our men made it out the ambush. All we can do is wait. Jamal reached and grabbed Nate's pant leg. Nate patted his hand, letting him know he was there. He then turned his flashlight off to save the battery. The two SEALs sat in the dark waiting for rescuers. After we were found, I was somehow blamed for the incident. I cold-cocked the general and was discharged. Then I ended up here. Nate watched as Marina slowly stood up and held out her hand. Join us. Nathaniel. Nate thought about the offer. It was a giant step from the military to a criminal organization, but it was better than living on the streets. No one else cared about the man. No one cared to notice him until Marina. Part of him knew better than to get involved, but he was in a desperate situation and had no other choice. Marina smiled as Nate took her hand, agreeing to join the group. 3 devils and counting. Marina, Kevin, and now Nathaniel. Chapter 9. New Iberia, Louisiana, Spring 1995. 4 years later, the late-night streets of New Iberia were quiet and calm. A low humid fog hung over the orange street lamps as the roads were slick with the dew. The traffic light slowly switched from red to green, and the only thing that stirred was a lone sheriff K9 patrol car. The window of the car rolled down, and the officer's hand came to rest on the side the door, along with his voice. "Mama, just killed a man, put a gun against his head, pulled my trigger, now he's dead." He sang along loudly with the radio blaring as his dark hair and dark eyes watched the road ahead. The dog in the cage behind the man sat up to sniff the fresh air. "Mama, life had just begun, but now I've gone and thrown it all away." His Louisiana, New Iberia sheriff badge and name tag, with Simoneaux written in bold black letters, caught a glint of the next red light. He stopped and continued to sing along with the radio. "Mama, ooh-oh. Didn't mean to make you cry if I'm not back again this time tomorrow, carry on." He was interrupted by the radio as the dispatcher yelling over the comm. 510, come in. She spoke in a harsh and annoyed tone. Each officer was assigned a call number, or badge number. This number was for the dispatcher and other deputies to call them over the radio with. 510. The officer picked up the radio. 511, needs your assistance on Main Street by the Chevron. The dispatcher clicked off, so he could speak. "Oh man, Sean?" He shook his head a bit before clicking the button to talk. 10-4. Johnny put his lights on and blew through the red light, turning up the radio. "Aw man." A disappointed look spread across his face as he raced down the 2-lane road. "I missed the main highlight of this song." He growled, a bit upset, but he was more worried about Sean. The black and white K9 unit blew through another lonely red light and cut across the street to the gas station. The dog began to bark and pace in the cage when he spotted the other two. The officer quickly threw the unit in park and opened his door. It was a bit difficult for him to run out, the car being 6 feet 1 and weighted down with a duty belt, but the skinny male maneuvered out. He quickly ran past the other patrol car and towards the middle of the almost empty gas station parking lot. "Sean!" he yelled out, turning almost a whiter color than he was already. He looked frantically for his brother as his heart pounded in his chest. "Johnny!" Sean's grunted voice and screams came from the other side the building. JJ sprinted toward Sean's voice. "Sean?" JJ rounded the corner and saw Sean holding his nightstick like a baseball bat and a very, very drunk older man across from him. "What in the hell?" JJ lifted a brow as he made his way closer towards the two. The old man had a huge beer gut and a long gray and white beard. His hair was crazed like he hadn't brushed it in a week, and his clothes were stranded. The older man flung a can of beer at Sean, and Sean hit it with the nightstick. "Hey! Hey!" Sean grunted as he yelled at the man. "Sean! What is going on?" JJ spoke in a stern but concerned voice. Another can dropped out the box, and the old man attempted to kick them with his white rubber boots. The can fizzed and slid by the pile of others. "Ha! Can't do nothing in those Delcambra Reeboks," Sean screamed, making fun of his rubber boots. Delcambra Reeboks definition: a term used mainly in the Cajun part of south-central Louisiana for white rubber shoes often worn by Delcambra shrimpers. JJ put his hands on his hips on top his duty belt and shook his head at the whole scene. "Sean, You are never going to learn this job if you act silly like that. JJ pointed to the way Sean held his nightstick. No one will take you serious. This is not one of our baseball games. Johnny chuckled a bit. Yeah, well, I wish it was. I would sure hit a beer can straight in his fat face for a home run. Sean held his nightstick steady despite JJ's advice. Go to hell, pigs. The old man went to throw another one, but stumbled back a bit and dropped the case of beer he was clutching. Sean glanced over to JJ and shook his blonde shaggy hair. This old fart is mean. Him and I were just in a fist fight before you pulled up, man. Another can went flying by Sean, and he let out a yelp. The yelp almost sounded like a girl's, and the old man laughed. You scream like a little girl. He burped and stumbled a bit. JJ tried not to laugh as he walked toward Sean. Sean, put the nightstick down. JJ then turned to face the old man to try and calm the situation down, unlike Sean was doing. Sir, please calm down. JJ spoke calmly, but in an authoritative tone. I will have your badge number and names. This isn't right. I'm an American. The man pointed at them. What is your name? The old man pointed to JJ. Simoneaux. JJ answered the old man as Sean put his nightstick away. The old man then pointed his dirty finger to Sean. What is your name, sissy? He burped and tried to stand up straight. Simoneaux, you old fart. Sean made a face at the old man. Sean. JJ whispered and elbowed him. What? Sean kept his glaring stare on the old man, eyeing him down. You can't tell people that, Kuyan. JJ whispered so that only his brother could hear. Sean glanced at his brother and shrugged his shoulder. So, he is being difficult. JJ looked back at his brother, narrowing one eye. So, remember what the academy taught you, and what mama said, do unto others, yada yada. Sean shook his head and yada you with JJ. The brothers knew how their mother was and what she jammed into their brains from birth. You are pulling my leg, you little sh. The man spoke up to get their attention as he wobbled a bit in a drunken stupor. No, we are brothers. JJ glared at the old man, holding back his own words that he wanted to spew at him. Yeah, brothers. You dumb. Sean yelled, and JJ, without turning around, used the back of his hand to slap Sean's gut hard. JJ's hand hit Sean's vest and made a sound. Ouch! Sean stumbled back a bit. It didn't hurt. JJ knew that vest could take a bullet, so Sean was just being the baby brother he was. Look, you need to sit down, old man. JJ pointed to the curb and ordered the man down. He was past being polite at this point. I told him that, but he didn't listen. Sean told his brother, go to hell. The old man drank another beer quickly and threw the can at JJ's face. JJ jumped as it hit the side of his face. The remaining beer spilled all over him, and JJ wiped it off quickly. That's it. JJ yelled, enraged, and rushed after the old man. His brother Sean was not far behind him. The old man tried to take off running, but he was tackled by the two white boys. You racists, cops! The older white man screamed as he tried to wiggle away from them. You're white. JJ grunted as he held onto the man's shirt. Stop resisting! JJ screamed. Sean had the man's legs and was being dragged as the man tried to crawl away. JJ glanced up and noticed the cashier watching the whole thing with wide eyes. He waved with his free hand at her. Ma'am. The cashier waved back, still in shock. Suddenly the old man stopped and barfed all over concrete. Gross. Sean quickly let go of the man's legs and rolled away. JJ still had the man's shirt with a death grip. That is just nasty. JJ wrinkled his nose at the pungent smell. The old man tried to stand up, but JJ used his boot and pushed the old man back down. JJ quickly reached to grab his cuffs and slapped them on the man's wrists. JJ then stood up and brushed himself off. There. Now. Was that so hard? He huffed as he walked towards Sean, who was watching his brother do all the work at this point. Thank you, and heck yeah it was. Sean made a face at his older brother as he watched the old man continue to barf. He isn't going in my car. Sean made a face at the spewing chunks. Yes he is, dipstick. I have Sasquatch in mine. The dog would tear his old wrinkled butt up. JJ referenced the dog barking wildly in the back of his unit, while making fun of the old man out of earshot. The Simoneaux brothers watched the old man curse, vomit, and curse some more at them. What was his deal anyway? Besides being a drunken douche? JJ asked Sean. He came in the store drunk, got rowdy with the cashier, and then walked out with the beer without paying. Sean shook his head a bit. And it is only 12 a.m. I have a feeling it is going to be a long night. JJ shook his head. Made me miss the best part of Bohemian Rhapsody. JJ frowned as he remembered the song that played in his unit when he got the call. 510. A male's voice came over the radio, and all JJ could do was hang his head. He knew that for the rest of the night it was going to be non-stop. Sean walked away cursing to get the old man up off the ground, who was now attempting to crawl away. Sean! JJ yelled at his brother before answering the radio. 510. JJ took his thumb off the radio button that hung over his shoulder. Sean looked back at his brother as JJ used the motion that signaled for Sean to stop with cursing. Hey JJ, 518, I need you and your monster out here on Darnell. JJ listened to the male on the other side the radio and ignored Sean, who was fussing back at JJ. When the male was finished talking, JJ looked back at his brother, who started arguing with the old men again. 10-4. JJ turned to walk to his unit, not wanting to deal with the situation anymore. Sean, I have to go help Jackson. You got this, JJ yelled at Sean as he opened the unit's door. Yes, Sean grunted sarcastically as he was practically dragging the old passed-out man to his car. Okay, call Mama. JJ yelled as he sat in the driver's side of his unit. Sean stopped and let the man drop. He wiped the sweat from his brow and made a whiny face. What? Sean asked, unable to hear what his brother said. Call, Ma. Ma, she had called earlier looking to talk to you. JJ called out from the window loud and slowly, as if Sean was hard of hearing and special. Okay. Sean flipped his brother off with one hand, while getting the drunk man to his car with his other. JJ gave Sean a blank stare and shook his head. That boy is never going to learn. JJ then stuck his fingers in the cage behind him to pet the dog as he drove off. Let's go, Sasquatch, we have work to do. We don't have time to play around with numbnuts and retired Santa Claus. The dog continued to bark and whine as it paced in the cage. Oh dang, sorry. I didn't get you any beef jerky. We have to go help Jackson out. JJ reached over and turned the classic rock channel on as he drove to help out the other deputy. Music always helped calm his nerves down. Chapter 10. JJ parked this K9 unit on the frontage road off the highway behind Deputy Jackson's unit. Leaving the unit engine running, the officer slowly exited the driver's seat. The units were always running and rarely turned off in case the deputies had to hop in and haul it to another location. They didn't even turn it off when they were filling up at the gas station most times. Sometimes under the hood would get so hot, some guys would heat up their supper or even cook. All you had to do was wrap up something in aluminum foil and cook it close to the engine. JJ walked around to the back door to grab Sasquatch's leash. "Come on then, buddy." He grabbed the leash, opened the door all the way, and watched the dog happily sniffing the tall grass after hopping out. Jackson rounded the corner and made his way towards JJ. Jackson was a little bit shorter, but he was built stocky with dark skin. The dog perked up his head and ears as he watched Jackson walk towards them. The radio broke the silence, and both deputies reached and lowered the volume. Being out in the country now, the radios echoed loudly over the chirping insects. "I'm guessing you had to go help out Sean again?" Jackson asked as he walked over and stood in front of JJ. Jackson lifted his duty belt up and adjusted it a bit as JJ just shook his head in disappointment. It was an annoyance having to carry the duty belt. The belts would slip out of place every now and then from the weight they carried, but the items on them were necessary. Of course. Sean cannot do anything right. Sasquatch sniffed a bit and then sat beside JJ panting. Jackson let out a small chuckle, knowing how much Sean was a screw-up. "I always have to help him out, be it at work or at home. It can get to be annoying." Mama held his hand and shawed, or babied him too much growing up, JJ admitted with a laugh. "I figured as much, being one of us always has to go help him out." "Why did he want to do this job again?" Jackson asked. "I have no idea. Me and you have been doing this for some 4 or 5 years now. He followed along because it is the only place he could be up my butt was here." "Monkey see monkey do," JJ teased his brother. The two officers laughed knowing it was the truth. Sean was always one step behind JJ. "Oh, well anyways, I got a call about a guy possibly running around back here in the cane field. Tried to break into that guy's house." Jackson pointed to the house up the road a bit. JJ glanced towards the house then the field. "All right, let's go." "Sasquatch has been ready for action." JJ gave a command in Dutch to Sasquatch, and the dog began to sniff the ground and pull JJ. Jackson followed behind JJ, keeping his eyes open. As the two officers made their way down the narrow rows of the cane field, they struck up a small conversation. Jackson and JJ both graduated the academy together, and both had recently made their 5th-year anniversary together. Sean, however, only started a year ago. Sean was often a screw-up and the butt of most of their jokes. He failed the academy twice and was stuck in the jail for 4 years. It wasn't until a new sheriff came to office did he get another chance to go to the academy. "What did Sean do this time?" Jackson asked. JJ turned slightly to give Jackson a guess look. "He needed help getting an old drunk man under control." JJ held Sasquatch's leash tied around his wrist as the dog led them forward. "You still dating that chick Becky? That's her name, right? The one you met when we went for drinks after the academy?" Jackson asked as the two trampled through the high sugarcane rows. Sasquatch led the way through the darkness, followed by JJ and Jackson. The green leaves from the tall stalks of sugar slapped the two in the face as they made their way in deeper into the field. "Yeah, my mom keeps asking when I am going to just marry her already." The dog paused at the end of the row and listened. "Yeah, my wife says she knows her and her parents are crazy." Jackson chuckled a bit. "But so are you and your brother, so, perfect match. Didn't you meet her in the men's room?" JJ turned around and gave Jackson a playful glare. "What? It's true. You and your brother are two crazy white boys." Jackson added, and JJ just shook his head and kept walking behind Sasquatch. I meet her in the gas station restroom across the street, and yes, her parents are a bit off their rocker, but Becky is not. They are those rich snob types, you know. Thinking I'm not good enough for her cause I don't make bank. Sean, he is the crazier out of the two of us. JJ kept his head facing forward as he talked to the other deputy. You two are the only nuts I know who would climb a tree to get a boa constrictor down, or that time they had an alligator in that woman's pound, and you went full crocodile hunter and pulled it out. Jackson named only a few crazy instances. Yeah, that was a bad idea, but you hauling it when it growled. JJ let out a laugh as he held on to the leash. That sucker bite me and I had to have stitches, but Sean and I are used to that sort of stuff. Remember our dad had a gator farm at one time. It was a side job for him. The dog suddenly began to growl and then bark like crazy. JJ had to yank back to keep him from pulling him to the ground. Jackson and JJ's smile soon left as they knew it was time to get serious. Come out with your hands up or we are sending in the dog, Jackson commanded as he put his hand on his duty weapon. Suddenly a young guy ran out the field in the other direction. JJ let the dog's leash go, and the dog took off after him. JJ and Jackson were not far behind, chasing the man. The dog latched on the young guy's arm and dragged him to the ground. JJ grabbed Sasquatch's collar as Jackson grabbed the man's other arm. Jackson brought the man's arm up and cuffed it quickly as the man screamed. "Oh, the dog, man. The dog told you to come out, man." JJ grunted as he struggled to get Sasquatch off. Jackson held the cuffed arm and was waiting for the dog to let go so he could cuff the other. JJ yelled commands as he reached around to detach Sasquatch from the male. The dog mistaken JJ for the man and bit JJ's arm. JJ yelped in pain and bent down to grab Sasquatch's ear in his mouth. JJ bit Sasquatch's ear back, and the dog yelped, finally letting go. Jackson grabbed man's other arm and cuffed him. The dog still barked like crazy at the man as Jackson lifted the male up with ease. JJ struggled to get a hold of the dog's leash at the same time as his balance. He finally planted his foot down in the dirt and wrapped the leash around his arm. The whole time as they walked back, the night was filled with the barks of the dog, as well as crying and cursing from the male. Jackson had the cuffed male in front of him, followed by the dog and JJ. They finally reached the frontage road, and Jackson walked the man over to the car, reading him his rights. JJ dragged Sass back to his unit and locked him inside. "Don't you tear up anything either." JJ pointed to the barking dog inside. Jackson walked a little past JJ. "Thanks, man, I have to go talk to the homeowner again." He pointed to the house as he walked towards it. "All right, I will see you at the office." JJ walked to the driver's side of his car. The dog was still going crazy in the cage. His high-pitched yelps and barks were getting on JJ's nerves, so he yelled a few commands to silence him. JJ then put the car in drive and took off to the office. JJ pulled up at the police station and brought Sasquatch down with him. He put the dog in the kennel so he could eat, while JJ could work on a bit of paperwork. Walking in, he waved at the dispatchers as he walked toward the back. Sean was there racking his brain on his own paperwork. "JJ, thank God, man, I need some help on this." Sean leaned back in the small rolling chair, running a hand through his blonde hair. JJ rolled his eyes and walked over towards him. "Is this on the drunk guy?" JJ asked, and Sean shook his head. "Yeah, you know I have trouble with this crap." Sean frowned a bit as JJ stood beside him and looked down at what he was doing. "You have to take this and put it down here." JJ showed Sean, pointing to the paper. "Oh, dang it." Sean stood up a bit and reached for a new sheet. As his butt was off the chair, JJ used his foot to push the chair away from him a bit. Sean went to sit back down and missed the chair. He landed hard on the floor and cursed. "Dang it, JJ." JJ ran away from him laughing hard. Sean balled up the paper and threw it at his brother as he peeled himself off the floor. The paper bounced off the wall, missing JJ as he went into the other room. "What is all the noise going on in here?" Another officer walked past JJ. Sean fell LT. JJ answered him and continued to walk into the break room. JJ called his girlfriend Becky to check on her, then his mom. It was late, but JJ knew he would be on the phone longer with his mother. It was getting closer and closer to the time when JJ was off. Working 12 hours on the night shift for 2 days straight was hard. Especially the stuff they had to deal with. He looked forward to the 2 days he was off, but even then, he was working. JJ still had dog training once a week on narcotics and apprehension, as well daily on obedience. Sasquatch never left JJ's side, not even when JJ went on hunting or fishing trips. Sean was the same way. The Simoneaux brothers were known to come in a pair. Double trouble to their mom. "Why didn't Sean call me, JJ?" His mom fussed over the phone. "I don't know. I told him. He might have been busy. You know we get busy a lot, Ma." JJ talked as munched on cold pizza and filled out paperwork. "And I told that girl, Becky, she needed to pick up her mess. Ain't no sense in having that house a mess." His mother fussed more. "Yeah, well, she works too, Ma, and has college." He defended his girlfriend. "I know, but pick up after yourself. No need for all that mess, and Aunt Claire and I are hosting a ladies' thing at church. If she wants to come." His mom continued to talk as JJ listened. "Okay, Mom, I have to go." "Okay, bye-bye, love you." He practically hung up with her when Jackson came in. "Let's pray we have no more calls." "Come on, 6am. Jackson grabbed a water bottle from the fridge. "We have a couple more hours since it is only 4 a.m, but our luck we will," JJ said with a full mouth as he rose from the table to throw away his napkin and plate. "I have a ton of paperwork to do." Jackson frowned and took another sip of his water. "Same, but I have double. You know Sean cannot do paperwork for nothing." They both laughed. "I heard that," Sean called from the other room. "Oh, you in trouble? You didn't call Mama back? You lucky she is going to church tonight." JJ called back. "Oh man." Sean whined from the other room. "Oh well, I'm going to head back out." JJ walked past Jackson and towards the door leading outside. He flipped Sean off as he passed and exited the building. He grabbed Sasquatch, and the two went on patrol for a couple more hours.